Hey YouTube, and welcome to the first video series of It Just Clicked. The first subject that we'll be tackling is math, and probably because it's my favorite subject. One reason I love math is that numbers and equations are reliable. They'll never fail you. You might accidentally fail yourself though, so be careful. The other main reason that I love math is that there are so many ways to arrive at solutions for problems. You have a lot of freedom if you know what you're doing. So let's get started with numbers. Numbers are symbols that we use to measure things. How tall you are, how many times you've eaten today, and how much money you have are all things we track with numbers. The most basic form of using numbers is counting. So let's count to 10 real quick. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So one of the first things I want to talk about is if you notice when we got to 10, we added a 1 to the left and went back to 0. We do this because we use what's called the base 10 decimal system. In this system, whenever we go past a 9, we add 1 to the left and start back over. For example, at 59, we add 1 to the 5 and go back to 0, so 60. For comparison, the base 2 decimal system, or binary system, does that after just 1. So it goes 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. And that's only counting to 5. No matter the decimal system, they all start at 0. In fact, you could imagine zeros running on forever to the left of every number. But what happens if we count down? If we start at 3, we would go to 2, then 1, then 0, but then what? Well, that's where negative numbers come in. Negative numbers are basically the opposite of positive ones. For example, you could have a $10 bill in your hand. You'd have $10. But let's say you don't have any money, and your friend says they will buy you a $10 meal if you agree to pay them back, and you agree. Now you have minus $10. For every dollar you pay your friend back, you go to minus 9, then minus 8, until you fully pay your friend back, and then you have $0 again. Weird how that works in math, huh? So now let's move on a little bit, but still stick with the counting idea. Addition and subtraction are ways of counting by more than 1. When we just counted to 10 a minute ago, we were counting by 1. In other words, we were adding 1 to each number. When we counted down, we were subtracting by 1. We can add or subtract by any number we want, and when we do, we're basically counting by that number. For example, we can start at 0 and add 3, or count by 3 and end up at 3. Then if we added 5, or counted by 5 starting at 3, we would end up at 8. For subtraction, we could start at 10 and subtract 3, or count down by 3 starting at 10, and we would end up at 7. Then if we subtract another 5, or count down from 7 by 5, we would end up at 2. Now that we've covered the basics, let's get into multiplication. Multiplication is the more effective way of counting when dealing with larger numbers. When you multiply, you pick one of the numbers and you add that number to 0 as many times as the other number. For example, with 3 times 5, we can add 3 5 times, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Or we can add 5 3 times, so 5, 10, 15. Learning your times tables, that is, every multiplication pair from 1 to 10, will help you a lot if you want mental math to be easy and fast. This is very helpful even throughout college. Another tip is when you multiply by numbers larger than 10, just do one number at a time. For example, 4 times 36 seems impossible to do in your head at first, but if you break it down to 4 times 30 plus 4 times 6, then it becomes a lot easier. 4 times 30 is 120, because we know that 4 times 3 is 12, and 30 is just adding a 0 at the end. By the way, 40 times 30 would add 2 zeros, or 1200. Back to the problem though. We have 120. We also know that 4 times 6 is 24, if we know our times tables. So we take that 120 plus the 24, and we get 144. Not too bad. Multiplication is very helpful for us in the real world too. For example, let's say you're buying shirts for a team. You want to get 2 shirts for each player so that they have an extra. There are 12 people on your team, including yourself. If you want to quickly know how many shirts you need, you can multiply 2 shirts for 12 teammates. That gives you 24 shirts. Who wants to count out all 24 of those? Not to mention, if each shirt costs $7 and you want to know the total, you can now multiply 24 shirts for $7 and you get 140 plus 28, or $168. I know I'm not counting that. On to our final note for this video, and, in my opinion, one of the coolest things in math is the existence of patterns. It's very helpful to recognize patterns where they exist because they act like little rules that you can use to your advantage. This is a good example of how math is reliable as it never changes, so these rules will never change either. For example, any negative number multiplied by any other negative number will always result in a positive number. Another set of patterns that you may want to check out are what are called nice numbers. Those are numbers that when added together make 10, like 8 and 2 or 6 and 4. Nice numbers can make mental math much easier. For example, 23 plus 27 is easy if you know your nice numbers. It's basically 40 plus 10, or 50. You can also look for other patterns within the relationships of multiples, like increments of 2, 3, or 4. Now is the perfect time to get familiar with these patterns, as things will only get more complex moving forward, and recognizing any patterns will help a ton. I will also try to call out any patterns from now on when they come up. Let me know if I miss anything in the comments and get a start on recognizing those patterns. That'll do it for this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and I'll see you again soon.